So, meine Damen, meine Herren, herzlich
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the kick-off press conference of the Hannover Messe 2023. Welcome to everybody here present, but also welcome to everybody who is following us online via the stream. The Hanover Fair will start in a couple of days. On Monday is the first day of the Hannover Messe, and we would like to inform you about the major figures, but also about the major contents of this year's Hannover Messe. This is the topic up here on the screen, solutions for the challenges of our time. This is, of course, an ambitious and an optimistic topic, and in the upcoming hour we would like to give you specific examples of how the Hannover Messe will use technologies, but also being an economic political platform to give solutions for the challenges of today. We are very happy to do so on behalf of the Deutsche Messe AG, but also on behalf of our exhibitors and our partners. I am very happy that we have the ambassador of Indonesia, Arif Hawaz-Orikhruseno, with us today. Indonesia is this year's partner country. It is an economic player in the Asian area with a focus on digitalization and climate action, which is why Indonesia fits the topic of Hannover Messe perfectly. I would like to also welcome Markus Asch. He is the CEO of Rittal International and Rittal Software Systems, a global player in electrical cabinet technology and climate technology, IT infrastructure, software and services. I had to read that out, I'm sorry. And one of you may have already read this in the past week in the local magazines. The Factory of Science Fiction, one of Rittal's plants. They are experts for digitalization, automatization, energy management, energy and thinking energy and supply together for a CO2 neutral industry. We are looking forward to your presentation, Mr. Asch. I would like to, of course, also welcome Dr. Jochen Köckler. He will give us an overview over the Hannover Messe and the mega focus topics of this year's trade show. This is a traditional format of a press conference. Afterwards, you will have the opportunity for asking your questions. For all those of you who would like to listen to this presentation in German or English, you can get a headphone and listen to the simultaneous interpretation. Please take a headphone and then choose your preferred language. I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Jochen Köckler now, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I too would like to bid you a very, very warm welcome here to at the kickoff press conference for Hannover Messe 2023. I'd like to begin by saying that we're very relieved and happy that now, after 3 years, Hannover Messe will once again, at long last, be held in April, the traditional month, and we have a feeling of a real trade show here. And we've had this for about 2 weeks now because a lot of people who are here and have been here for a couple of weeks setting up the trade show. But in the city too, in Hanover, you can read that Hanover is full, the hotels are full, all booked out. It's almost impossible to get a room now. There are a lot of people in restaurants, and these are all good signs for the upcoming trade show. Why is that the case? Well, it's content, content, content. We have really done our utmost to find the right subjects, and as the title says, solutions for the challenges of our times. Last year we talked a lot about this, but of course we also had some rules regarding the pandemic. Most people don't even have masks, just one person here today, but we had challenges that we wouldn't have dreamed of 2-3 years previously. The big challenge now is climate change. It's like the internet 20, 25 years ago when I began. Some people thought that'll be over soon, and people thought maybe climate change, that'll be a thing of the past soon. But that's not going to disappear. It's a big challenge for the upcoming generations. And at the same time, we do have a scarcity of energy. A lot of people have not experienced this in the past. We still have supply chain difficulties, and the fourth thing, in Germany in particular, is that we have a lack of specialists. Now, these are huge subjects that are in the background for all of our activities, but we shouldn't worry about it. We just have to realize we need solutions. And the first thing we need for solutions is the political framework. And we're happy that in that next week there's going to be many, many politicians here, because the decisions to be made by lawmakers will be important for our society as a whole. And in society, we need acceptancy. So this platform of the Hannover Messe is intended to make a contribution of enhancing acceptance in society for this transformation. And in addition to that, we have Mr. Asch for Rittal, who's going to be showing solutions and innovations from industry. And it is in this framework that we have Hannover Messe making the difference, because there are two things that are really important in industry. On the one hand, you've got to make a contribution to ensuring that less energy is consumed in manufacturing. But above all, we've got to have technologies so that ultimately these solutions can actually be achieved. And this is definitely something that is analogous to the third point. It can only be done together. There's not one company that can press a button and solve all the solutions. Rather, it's about integration, working together. And at Hannover Messe 2023, we're once again back in April, and it's great that we have so much trust from our exhibitors. We have more than 4,000 exhibitors on board here. Of the 4,000, of course, Germany is the country with the greatest number. That's then followed by China, Italy, Turkey, our partner country Indonesia, then the US, and India and the Netherlands. All in all, we've got 63 countries who will be represented here at Hanover with their exhibitors. And the champions for the next week will be the 4,000 exhibitors showing with their products what they can do. These are the big companies that you're familiar with: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, SAP, Siemens Energy, Bosch, Nokia, ServiceNow, Schneider Electric. These big global industrial companies that equip factories, that provide solutions in an industrial environment. Then we've got medium-sized companies too. I've got to say that here the world is envious of our SMEs. They're very strong in Germany. These include names such as Beckhoff, Festo, Harting, IFM, Pepperl and Fuchs, Phoenix Contact, Rittal, SEW. The German SMEs, as you'll see, consider themselves to be SME family-owned companies, but all of them are very big industrial companies that are all working globally, and therefore they are exhibiting here at this global platform, Hannover Messe. And in between them, we have a bridge between science and applied technology, and that's why we're very happy that renowned research institutions such as Fraunhofer and KIT are here. Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and 300 startups. They show that in industry, and they do things for these companies, which have a lot of development divisions, of course. They've been around for maybe 150 years, but for young people who have just finished their studies or maybe didn't even study, often they say, I don't want to join a big company, I want to set up a company of my own, and you're going to have a lot of them represented here at Hannover Messe too. Now, this can't be done with anarchy. We can't say there are a lot of challenges. We're going to be developing things for that. Rather, we are mapping or reflecting the mega trends that are going to be the common thread here at Hannover Messe. On the one hand, you've got all questions regarding artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'll go into depth on this in a minute, but 5 or 6 years ago, that was way down the road. And now we're going we're seeing a lot of things in AI that are getting very, very close to us. And then hydrogen, for many years, for decades actually, it's been around, and now it's more relevant than ever. Then we've got Industry 4.0. It's been represented here for 10 years, coupled now with Manufacturing X, so it's brand new. And then energy management. When you walk around inroads, you see that we're facing more and more decentralized energy production. You see solar panels and wind turbines more and more everywhere. This got to be managed and handled. And then you've got carbon neutral production. AI, machine learning, why is it more exciting than ever before? Well, I don't think I really have to explain it to you. ChatGPT, I experienced this in January, what it means if a speech such as this one that I'm holding, I'm not reading it, so it wasn't written by ChatGPT, but it could perhaps be written in ChatGPT. So we have learned how powerful what we call generative AI can be and will be. And in industry, it's going to be providing a real boost in efficiency, and we're very happy and gratified that we have wonderful examples represented here that demonstrate what can be achieved if you apply artificial intelligence. We've got a company called Aleph Alpha represented here, a German company, which is working with Hewlett Packard to take another step into the future. It's not just about writing a speech. They will show you during the press highlight tour and then in Hall 17 that there are robots now that you can talk to. And robots will then provide you with information and solutions. So this isn't science fiction that we just heard about. Some people will say, okay, I'm going to be cooking some eggs, set the alarm to 7 minutes. That's just voice control. That's not artificial intelligence. But if we add all of these things together, there will be robots that will be quickly helping us to find solutions. Something that's new here is this. 5-6 years ago, we had robots that for the first time weren't behind a protective gate or fence. And a lot of people said, will this lead to mass unemployment? But let me tell you the opposite. Now AI is a question. There is a subject that will help us secure our future because we have a lack of specialists. So anywhere that we can use technology to replace people that we can't find, this can be a solution because there's a big challenge of a shortage of specialists. If you look at our demographics in Germany, this is something that you might not otherwise realize. Then hydrogen. A mega reason to visit. I can really call upon you to just go look at this. A lot of people are talking about it. Not everyone has really understood it, really. We've got more than 500 exhibitors here who show the potential of hydrogen. We've got more than 60 international delegations who will be coming, and many of them will be in the field of hydrogen. Why? Because hydrogen, green hydrogen, can help us meet these two big challenges. The first two. First of all, climate change, preventing climate change because it's fossil free. You can produce hydrogen with solar energy or wind power, and then you have electrolysis that can be used to then have hydrogen store energy. And if you look at the situation today, you see that hydrogen fuel cells, well, that's been talked about for 25 years and more. Our energy specialist is nodding. But in times where cheap gas was around, it wasn't scaled up. But it's going to scale up now. So the delegations, no matter whether they've come from far away, from Argentina, or from Northern Europe, or from Portugal, from Canada, no matter where they're from, they want to come to the global stage of industry so that if we produce energy that we all don't need immediately, we can produce hydrogen. And the hydrogen will be transported. And what's above all being discussed here is what amounts, what prices, and where is the demand. And I'd like to emphasize this. It was really interesting for me to have a look at Salzgitter AG right here in our state of Lower Saxony, because they're here to exhibit, and their project is called SciCost. They'll be at the focus, and lawmakers are going right down this same path. They need hydrogen for it, though. And the question is, where will the hydrogen be coming from? And that's going to be discussed here. That is one great reason to visit, to go see that. The third big subject is Manufacturing X. Now, this is something that you all know about. I don't have to explain Industry 4.0 to you. That back in 2013, we began with this. We said the components, the individual parts of a factory can be integrated, interconnected, thus collecting data. We now have the data, but for the entire power of these systems to be released and used, we above all need a data ecosystem that is secure and guarantees data sovereignty for the individual participants. And we've put together a big project by BDI, Federation of German Industry, VDMA, German Engineering Association, ZVEI, German Electrical Electronics Manufacturers Association, and the German industry to come up with a massive application so that German industry can take the next step now and ensure secure data exchange in secure data rooms. And Mr. Asch, I'm sure you'll say that no one can do this alone. Everyone can make a contribution to this happening, and this will be a major theme for the future, and also at this year's fair. And we have emphasized and are very proud of the fact that, well, during the crisis we did go through some turbulence, but we have set up our 5G network, and we're very happy that our team that supports this is offering the industrial wireless arena. I was just on the shuttle, like some of you, to come here, and this is an application for how you need connectivity in real time. We've got more than 60 exhibitors here, more than 80 presentations, and this is only possible thanks to our partners, the VDMA, the ZVEI, and 5G ASEA. This is a very global subject, and ultimately 5G is the basis for ensuring that we can do all of these things wirelessly. Simple example, factories of the future will also have robots. In the past, they always had to have a wired connection to make them do what they were supposed to do, and in the future they'll be wireless too. So you can really look forward to this. It's a real reason to visit Hanover next week. Then energy management. This is a subject that we've been trying to focus on for many years now, and the challenge is this. It's quite logical if you look at the situation. I personally was up on the North Sea coast over Easter, and coming back from the North Sea coast to Hanover, it was interesting to see how many solar panels had been set up on the right and left-hand side of the Autobahn. A lot of wind turbines have been set up. Lots of energy will be produced there. This is a big locational factor for our state, for the north, if I can be patriotic for a second. But you've got to manage this because not all the factories will be moving to the north. So how can you ensure that this energy can be used? And this is something you'll see in the next week. We're happy that Siemens Energy will be here to showcase that. They were spun off from Siemens, and they are the supplier for anything dealing with energy. What does it mean if I want to move to renewable energies? What does it mean if I want to have hydrogen? How can that be used for bringing energy on a sunny, windy day? At least in the north it was sunny and windy. And then how can you then take that energy that you don't need immediately? How can you deal with it, and how can you control your factory? Experts will be telling us about this. If it produces more electricity than it needs, or vice versa. So the basis of all this is, of course, as always, carbon neutral production. This is a big subject here at Hannover Messe. In its 78th year, it'll be a climate protection show this year. Hugely important. The core of the Hannover Messe brand. I always tell this to people when I am awoke at 3 in the morning. Innovation and carbon neutrality. And carbon neutrality is an important subject. I was just telling this to the 60 delegations we have here. 4 weeks ago I was in India, and everyone, no matter whether they were huge corporate managers or the driver of the taxi, I asked what they thought about sustainability, and all of them said, of course, we're investing a lot in renewable energies. We're going to be hearing about this from the ambassador, Mr. Havas, and a lot of countries are really focusing on renewable energies, expanding them, and I was surprised how global this subject has become, because often it appears that, okay, we emit only 2% of global CO2. Is everything we're doing here in Germany correct? But it is a global subject, a major subject here, and the path toward carbon neutral production will be leading via Hannover in the next week. It's about finding technologies and solutions for the challenges of our day and age. Hannover Messe is also a very special trade show because it is a cross-sector show. It's about all the different exhibitors, 4,000 people from more than 60 countries coming together. It's also about these charismatic people you see up on the chart, the politicians and lawmakers. They are here to learn and to make contributions. We're happy to have the CEO of Siemens, a member of the Board of Management of Bosch, our minister in Germany for climate protection, and a professor from Fraunhofer Institute. So we're really going to have a lot of sharing of ideas. It's about industrial transformation. It's about changing. It's about the direction we're going, and we're the platform. We provide the platform. And it's about competitiveness. This is perhaps one word to describe what we do here. Ultimately, it's about showing solutions. The companies come here to invest. They want to spend money, but ultimately with their manufacturing facilities, they've got to manufacture products that are competitive. And therefore, I'd like to thank everyone here who's going to be holding presentations, 1,100 presentations. We have not only the booths, but a lot of other content too, presentations and panel discussions. Our partner country, Indonesia. Dear Mr. Havas, at long last, we're ready to go now. Back in 2020, Indonesia was supposed to be partner country. In 2021, it wasn't possible. 2022, Indonesia was our digital partner. And then we had a bit of a break. That year it was Portugal, and we promised that we will really do it again right in April. And I'm very proud that we're succeeding in doing this. Indonesia is a really exciting partner country. You see this in that it's the country, the fourth highest population country in the world, and all of the things that we're talking about here, 17,000 islands. All of the subjects that I mentioned are very, very relevant for Indonesia. And in Germany, we do have a major shortage of specialists because our average age is 20 years higher than in Indonesia. And Indonesia is therefore very digital, very progress-oriented, very clear. Subject 2030, they want to be one of the top 10 economies in the world. In 2030, they want to have more than 50% of their energy renewable, so it's a top-notch partner country. And thank you, but everything else will be mentioned and presented by the ambassador himself in just a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've succeeded in persuading you, and I'll repeat what I've said before. If we didn't have Hannover Messe, we'd have to invent it. Persuading you that we have a platform with a mixture of exhibitors showcasing technological innovation, where you have the smartest, brightest minds around the world showing people what the solutions are. It's a program to overcome fear and negativity, depression. We can show that we have it in our own hands. We've got to do it. We are the neutral platform for this, and I'd like to warmly thank everyone for making a contribution to allowing us to have this platform. I'm looking forward to a look into the future. And now, Mr. Havas, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'd like to hand over to the ambassador from Indonesia. This is something that we have never had before, doing something like this together. So thanks to everyone who's on board for this, because I can just imagine how imagined it is to have a live connection to the president in 2022, the chancellor in Germany, and the president in Indonesia. And I'm very happy to say that we're going to have Indonesia here with the Prime Minister in just a couple of days to open the trade show. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Well, let me start first of all by thanking Jochen, a good friend of mine, old friend actually, for of course inviting me and having this kickoff meeting this morning, and also to Mr. Marcus Ash, who is going to be part of the panel discussions. I remember in 2018 when our minister came to Berlin, and we had the idea of being a partner country. To be frank, I did not know what it was. I did not really understand what it takes. I know it's big, I know it's powerful, and I know it's the source of the famous 4.0 industrial concept that was launched here in Hannover. And I recall our Minister of Industry, Dr. Erlangga, who was then Minister of Industry, but now he is coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs. He came to Berlin for, actually not for official capacity, but for personal capacity. And we had a discussion, and I talked to the minister. Why don't we consider the possibility of having partnership with Hannover Messe? And he asked a question, and I think a question is typical to journalist questions: why? Why would we want to be part of, Hannover Messe? What is it, Ambassador? I said, I don't know. I don't exactly know what it is. And then I had a meeting with our ambassador of Hannover Messe here. And we had a meeting in Berlin, and the idea actually was very simple. Indonesia is very well known as a travel destination, right? Bali, is a great travel destination. We have done a survey in Germany, and we are looking at 300,000 Germans always going to Bali every year. But not very many people know that Indonesia can build our own aircraft. We have an aircraft industry. We have licenses from Airbus, for instance. We build all your Airbus helicopters in Indonesia. Not very many people know that. We have our own shipyard. We build ship for military purposes and for commercial purposes. We actually send tankers from German company. So if a German company order a tanker from Indonesia, I think that should talk about quality by itself. We have our railway industry. We build our own rails, we build our own trains. Now we are exporting our rails and trains and locomotives, okay? We have about 20-25% of our GDP coming out of industry. But not very many people knows that. So I think that is the why. The why is to showcase Indonesia as a country that is not only for tourism destination, but also for industrial destination. That was the idea. That is why we want to become a partner country of Hannover Messe. And along the way, there are 3 new developments that sort of, kick our participation into a larger purposes. And the 3 things are, number 1, digitizations in Indonesia. We were very surprised by ourselves on the development of Indonesian digitization and e-commerce. I'll give you the number. Last year, we were supposed to grow our digital economy $44 billion. But we grew $72 billion last year. By 2030, our digital economy will be somewhere around $125 billion. To give a scale of that number, your export to China is around $112 billion. So our digital economy in 2030 will be larger than your export to China. So that is the scale of the number. And number 2, geopolitics. today that happened after the Russian invasion and after the difficult situation between US and China. And the third one is the environment, the climate change, sustainability issue. So with these three elements, we are showcasing five important ideas, within Hannover Messe this year. The first one is making Indonesia 4.0. So we are going to showcase, we still have the traditional brick and mortar industry, but we are moving forward the 4.0. There are already some companies in Indonesia who have already 4.0 full-fledged, not known, but it has a global market, and we want to showcase them. There will be 27 companies on this making Indonesia 4.0. The second part, it's very important, is the industrial park and investment. There will be 23 companies and a number of industrial parks that will be in Hannover Messe. And we are also going to establish a small office of our investment agency. We are going to have investment clinic. We are going to have a place where companies can have discussions in the investment clinic, and we can even go up to initial approval of any investment or expansion of investment in Indonesia. Startups, there will be over 20 startups that we are going to take into Hannover Messe. And we will have also sustainability and energy transition. There will be 16 companies. So this, I think, is very important for the current industry today, for Indonesia and also for Germany. Johan mentioned about waterstoff, hydrogens. I cannot name the company, but we have already one German developer already signing a number of agreement with Indonesian companies to establish already a hydrogen fuel cells development in Indonesia. I remember in different conferences when I was asked, have you had a national plan for hydrogen? Have you had some academics group on hydrogen? And have you done some talks and discussion? I said, no, we don't have that. We just have German company coming and making companies. So I think we want to cut this discussion phase. Okay, we just want to bring the interest. I agree with Jochen. We don't really understand what it is, but I think we have sunshine, we have solar panel, we have space. There are 80 hectares, 40 hectares, 60 hectares in different places near port, near airports. So the discussion would be setting up a solar panels over there, bring a green energy, bring it to hydrogen, and sell it not necessarily to German market. My theory is very simple. The price is the issue, right? If we can sell to the regional markets, say Korea and Japan, and if the price goes down in our region, it will go down also in Europe. So it's nice if a German company investing hydrogen in Indonesia can export to Europe, but if the market is already in the regions, so why not we just go to the regions, get the price down, and we can also export then to Europe. So another aspect of sustainability and energy transition is the machine making of the solar system, the solar panel itself. I was in a discussion in BMWK, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, with the German industries on solar panel. And there is a very interesting number, which is above 90% of the solar panels in the world today is coming from China. And some of the raw materials actually come from us, the silica sand. We have the second highest grade of silica sand in the world. And the first one is still Australia, but we have the second highest. And we are looking at the possibility of not sending in the raw materials anymore. So we are inviting German industries to come to Indonesia to have a manufacturing of solar panel in Indonesia. And this is relevant with the investment industrial parks. This is relevant also with sustainability and energy transitions. And we have already signed energy transition partnerships with Germany, Japan, and the US, G7. We received 20 billion US dollar for the energy transition in Indonesia. And this, I think, is also a very important aspect in the context of how we are going to go into energy transitions in the future. We have already 15 coal-based fire power plant, energy, electricity generation that will be closed before 2030. We will be closing 2 of them actually this year. So we have a very good problem, Jochen, in some area. We have overcapacity of electricity in some of the provinces in Indonesia. So cutting down the coal and moving to renewable, it's very sensible decisions, not only for economic idea, but also for the environmental as well. We will have human capitals exhibition as well, and we also have some display, in the context of our ability of our industry. So total, we will be having 157 companies in the Indonesian booth. There are private, there are some state-owned companies, but there will be more than 100 companies that will be in the hall too. So I hope that you could also be visiting and part of our guests there. We will also have one unique booth, which is the booth for the new Indonesian capital. So our capital, Jakarta, now, Jakarta is 1.5 less than Berlin. Berlin has 3 million people. We have not so sure. I think the registered people in Jakarta is 13 million, but during the day maybe 20 million because of people coming from around Jakarta. So it's very very jam-packed, and I think moving the government part is also a very sensible decision. The business part will still remain in Jakarta, but the government part will be in the new capital. So the construction is already beginning, and the funding, the idea is not coming from the government budget, it's coming from the investment, and we will have the chairman of the authority coming for the Hannover Fair. He will deliver a speech. I have received a lot of requests by German companies on this particular aspect, and we hope that we will be bringing more German companies to the picture of the new Indonesian capital. So when we talk about all of these 6 issues to showcase, I think at the end, with the 3 new development, at the end is about competitiveness. That Indonesia can provide a number of business incentive. We have very clear direction of where we are going. We are open for business, and at the same time, we are open for business that are sustainable. We are open for business that are giving German industries and global industries an alternative to just one basket of investment of locations. So if you are looking at the idea of decoupling, which is not, we are looking at diversifications, or you're looking at friendshoring, if you are looking at de-risking, these are the terms that industry now today are looking at. Government at federal level, government at the Landers level in Germany, then Indonesia offer itself as is one of, if not the best place alternative in Asia and in Southeast Asia. As Jochen mentions, we are 285 million people today. We are within the G20. We are moving to the directions of the largest 10 economies in the world. Our economy today grows at 5.3%. I think this is a number that in Europe you want to have, or in the US, or even in different parts of the world. Our inflation is nicely 4%. Unemployment is below 9%. And we are moving into a sustainable economy, a green economy with a very clear directions in the future. So competitiveness is also a key issue that we want to showcase ourselves. So we hope that you all will be coming to our hall, Pavilion 2, and our president will be coming here and opening the ceremony along with the chancellor. And I think one very important aspect is that our president will only come for Hannover Messe. He's not going for any other event or visits of different countries. So he will fly out from Indonesia directly to Hanover, stay in Hanover for 2 nights, and leave Hanover to Jakarta. So, Jochen, he will come just for you. Thank you.
If I maybe missed it, can you just tell me on the level of trade partners ranking as trade partners of Indonesia, where does Germany lie, or maybe Europe as a whole?
Germany is one of our most important trade partners today. You rank, I think, somewhere around 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah. In Europe, you rank 2 or 3, I think. Well, Europe, if you include the British.
Okay.
If you take the British out, then Germany is ranking 2. Number 1 is the Netherlands, but we believe it's not coming from the Netherlands, but coming through the Netherlands.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like investment coming out of Luxembourg. It's the highest investor in Europe. Outgoing is coming from Luxembourg. But I don't think it's coming from Luxembourg. It's coming through Luxembourg or Singapore. Singapore is the highest investment in Indonesia, which is actually coming through Singapore from Indonesia, probably.
Well, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Opportunities for enger investment ties next week in Hanover.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Perfect. So, und damit kommen wir zu unserem.
Okay, we'll move on to our final presentation now. I'd like to welcome Markus Asch, he's CEO of Rittal International. He's going to be talking to us from the point of view of an exhibitor at Hannover Messe, giving us a specific example of how Hannover Messe can pave the way to carbon-neutral industry. Thank you, Dr. Köckler. Thank you very much for setting the scene for the upcoming Hannover Messe that we're all really looking forward to. And Ambassador?
Pretty impressive. Especially the size of your digital industry was very impressive and something for us to keep in mind. Wenn wir angucken, was ein Land wie Indonesien.
When we look at what a country like Indonesia can do with its digital industry, it's actually more than impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to speak to you from the point of view of exhibitors to cast a glance at the upcoming Hannover Messe. Have you ever built a home of your own? If you have done this in the past, it was never easy. But if you had the capital, the money, if you had access to tradesmen, heating installers, bricklayers, electricians, and if these tradesmen did a good job, then at the end of the day, you would get a strong home built for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer the case nowadays. Nowadays, in many cases, buildings are built as smart and integrated systems, and this is actually necessary, in particular when you think of the subjects of energy and energy connection. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, if you have office nowadays, you don't have to heat it if no one's in it. This sounds trivial. The question is, how do you know if anyone's in there or not? Actually, you'd have to have access to that person's Outlook calendar or reservation system. So you can see that individual technologies can't provide us an overall solution. Or if you look at your own home, for instance, if you don't want to just consume power like you've done in decades and centuries past, but if your photovoltaic system, when consumption is low, is supposed to provide power to the grid, well then suddenly your electricity has to flow in both directions. Or let's put it differently. If everyone in your street suddenly were to switch to an electric car and they come home at 7 p.m. and they all plug their car into the wall box, then your light might go out. So suddenly you need integrated systems that would be hard to manage from the point of view of an individual home. You need overarching systems, you need coordinating systems. So you need different areas of expertise, and these different areas of expertise have to be combined intelligently. And this must be done in order to produce the right results. You've got to find and coordinate these things, these different tradesmen. Now, why are you talking about an individual home if you're supposed to be talking about industry? Well, in industry, ladies and gentlemen, there are many parallels to this, but it's even much more complex than that because, above all, when you think of the future of manufacturing, what do I mean here? Well, we've already heard from both speakers that the pressure is already extremely intensive and maybe even more brutal than ever before for all manufacturers. We've got to become more productive and efficient in order to maintain the standard in Germany and remain competitive. And if you think in terms of products and solutions, well, the requirements that our customers have of us are much broader nowadays, and the solutions are becoming increasingly complex too. And we're persuaded that this can only all be achieved with digitization. And for digitization, you need resources, including human resources. And these people must be trained very well in line with requirements. And as we heard from Dr. Köckler, we are moving into a phase in which we have a shortage of specialists. Also, as we have already heard, supply chains have been becoming more and more complex. And in the past few months, in terms of purchasing and sales, we have lost certain markets because of this. The expense and cost for stable energy power has gone up dramatically. And nevertheless, we are still going to focus on carbon neutral production because in addition to reducing the product carbon footprint, what's crucial for achieving our goal is overall reduced carbon footprint. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a situation that we've really got to face up to honestly. And at the same time, some of these demands are contradictory and they are overwhelming for us at some times. And the question is, how are we going to deal with this? Are we going to chime in with those people who see deindustrialization in Germany looming on the horizon? Ladies and gentlemen, the companies exhibiting here at Hannover Messe are going to demonstrate that this situation, although it may be very difficult, is also an opportunity, and we can take advantage of this opportunity for us as industrial companies, for us as in Germany as a site for industry, for us and therefore for our customers. And for this, we've got to be able to look at things differently and tackle things differently than we have in the past. Right now, we are in the midst of an industrial transformation. Now, what do I mean by that? The challenges that we are facing are also running in parallel with the energy transition. They can't be looked at and solved individually. It's not just processes or energy or people. They've got to be looked at holistically. And you can't do this in an individual industry or sector, or with an individual product, or in an individual company. For this industrial transformation, we've got to tackle these challenges in an integrated fashion. And this is one of our key messages, the key statements. We've got to look at these things in an integrated fashion and come up with overarching solutions. For example, the charging stations in your street for electric cars, or in charging stations in your homes, or heating offices when people aren't there or not. So no industry, no sector can master these challenges individually. This can only be done if we too interconnect in industry and coordinate our expertise. We just heard from Dr. Köckler that there will be 4,000 exhibitors here in Hanover. That's one of the key points. They were representing software, automation technology, artificial intelligence, energy management, and the more than 300 startups that we also heard about will be making an elementary and essential contribution to finding these solutions. So the message here is we've got to learn to link together different sectors. And when I say integrate or link sectors, I'm not just talking about integrated energy. We've got to link energy with buildings and transportation and industry and so on. Integration is more than just integrated energy. It's integrating our industrial ecosystems. Hannover Messe brings together all the expertise from the relevant sectors represented by the exhibitors. The companies here at the trade show are showcasing more than just products and solutions. The trade show, and this is the crucial point, they're the forum in order to discuss the connections between these different sectors, between these different areas. It's about discussing and designing overarching solutions. What does this mean? First of all, we've got to think in overarching processes. We've got to understand that they are such. We've got to think end to end. And then secondly, it's always important to have a standard data room with standards created for this, and then look at the big picture. And only if we look at the big picture can we have a platform for the future to allow us to be efficient, productive, sustainable, and in particular, we have to do this together. At the trade show, you'll be able to see how this is specifically possible. You can see this if you look at the keynote presentations. Let me just mention two of them to give you an idea of what we mean by this. First of all, Oliver Ganser, who is the CEO of Catena X Automotive Network. He'll be talking about prospects for this ecosystem as a data room. He'll be using an example, traceability. It's a very simple subject. In the past, let's say you had a problem with a component in a transmission for your car, or the customer had a problem with the transmission. Then you had to go through complex processes in order to trace that problem back to its source. And Catena X is changing this. In the future, the car manufacturer can go back to the first tier supplier, then the second tier, third tier suppliers, and trace this problem without, as we heard, without the participants having to give up or relinquish their data sovereignty. This is a very important point when we're talking about quality and competitiveness. But for this, these sectors have got to be linked together, and the participants. It's not just the car driver and the car manufacturer and the transmission manufacturer and the suppliers. Everyone in this value-added chain, including mechanical engineering, manufacturers, and digitization companies, and so on, has got to work together. And as we just heard, manufacturing X goes one step further. They go beyond the producing industry. They look at the processes, and for the producing processes, they then come up with a common data room. And this is the foundation for achieving transparency and optimization. Second example, Professor August Wilhelm Scheer is going to explain the concept of the composable enterprise or composable software. Now, what is this all about? Well, if you think in cross-sector digitization or cross-sector networking, connectivity, then it's important, on the one hand, to have standards, and on the other hand, to be able to quickly and intelligently be able to connect them up. And within your own company, you've got to be able to intelligently connect processes and systems, customer-related processes, production processes. They've got to be intelligently connected. So this complexity that you have in each company at different sites around the world cannot be managed anymore with huge monolithic software stacks. For this, you need intelligent modules that you connect up with no-code or low-code platforms. So instead of lots of programmers, we just heard that there's a shortage of specialists. Instead of employing all these specialists, you have low-code, no-code platforms, and with the citizen developers, you can quickly adapt them to your own factories. And the third example, there will be a panel discussion with Sebastian Kopp from Fraunhofer and colleagues who will be talking about how companies can go into modular standard production with electrolysis for the production of hydrogen, because, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't do this, the pace will not be high enough for the industrial transformation. So you can see that relevant subjects are going to be discussed at Hannover Messe, and we're going to be seeing the networking, the connectivity that is really what's most important. But it's not just about that at Hannover Messe. It's not just about discussing things, sharing ideas. Energy efficient products are now being introduced and presented here with alternative raw materials, such as green steel. And it's also about creating solutions. Solutions that already are based on integration between sectors. As we just heard from Mr. Köckler, Industry 4.0 might now be 10 years old or more. Now we have the impression that bit by bit it's really picking up steam. Many industrial companies have been optimizing their processes for years and years. And they've been doing this for a good reason. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we have a shortage of specialists and efficiency is becoming a business critical factor, automation and digitization have no alternatives, in particular in manufacturing. So let's now take a couple of minutes to talk about manufacturing and look at an example so that we can show you graphically what we're talking about here. For manufacturing companies, factories are the heart of things in economic and technological terms, and also in terms of their sustainability targets. When customer demands increase, products must become constantly more customized, and their quality must always be very high. So if we want to do this in Europe, smart production is our very clear target. If you want to produce intelligently, you have to have transparency in data flows. You have to create data rooms and achieve transparency about these data flows. Because to optimize them, you've got to measure and understand what is going on when in production, because only then can the production process be optimized. And as we also just heard today, this is particularly true of energy flows. In the past, people asked, how can I produce a product as efficiently as possible at the lowest cost with the desired output quantity in my factory? Today, and for a few months now, for a year or so, we've been asking, how can I achieve that target with the lowest possible consumption of energy And in the future, perhaps we'll be having to ask ourselves another question. What product must I produce when with the available energy? Or when is what energy going to be available at what prices so that I can produce my products as efficiently as possible? So there's going to be a third factor now in the production process, apart from efficiency, price, quantity, price per quantity. Now it's available energy too. And integration of sectors, ladies and gentlemen, is particularly important here because energy monitoring for integrated energy in production requires energy data, but it must be connected to the data in the production process. What do I mean here? Let's look at the energy in your house or apartment. Now, let's say you realize that at night and 2 in the morning you have an energy peak. Well, it's a nice parameter to have, a nice factor to know, but it doesn't tell you much. You have to know what power a consumer actually consumes that energy. And if you don't know that, you can't do anything. Now look at production. If you know that your production is consuming a certain amount of energy, but if you don't have the ability to allocate that or assign that to specific equipment in your production, you can't do much with it. So now you've got to be able to connect the electrical load data and your production load data and juxtapose one and the other in order to manage your energy. And only then can we lower our costs for energy production and thus reduce the product carbon footprint. Determine and reduce it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you look at current factories, no one thought about this when they were building these factories, and they did not think of this factor when they were setting up smart production either. Let's just think back to the person building a house. What worked in the past is no longer good enough. So the question is, how can we succeed in doing this? AI, analytics, self-learning systems. The companies at Hannover Messe will be providing answers to these questions. And one thing is certain, even if you have and use intelligent AI systems, and we will have to all do this in the future, even then, a lot of data will have to be used for this. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me give you a little example. As we heard, we have a Rittal factory. It's in Haiga. And there, up to 18 terabytes of data are produced every day by thousands and thousands of sensors in the production of products. Now, if you were to have paper for all of this data, that would be 20,000 cabinets full of loose leaf notebooks, binders that you produce every day. A lot of manufacturing companies produce different products with perhaps comparable data amounts. Where does this data come from? And this is crucial in order to understand what technological challenges we're going to be facing. They're from 3 different areas. The data comes from the machines, the equipment, first of all. And as I mentioned, this actually comes from many sensors and actuators, but they also come from the product. It's different configurations, different designs, exactly customized for the customer. And then they also, number 3, come from the production process itself. And the production process is something completely different from the product per se, the digital twin of the product. Now, as a result, when we talk about a data room or a digital twin, then one thing is clear. It's not just about one simple digital twin. And for this, we have solutions that are going to be presented at Hannover Messe, in particular in the field of energy management. What's important is to connect all of this data to achieve this foundation for relevant knowledge. To do this, the data from the production process has got to be connected to the data from the resulting energy required, because only if the data is interconnected and contextualized, only then will we be able to do something. Does this robot X, Y, or Z have to start up when you've already got a power consumption peak, or can it be done a couple seconds later so that you can flatten out your power consumption? What parameters will change the power consumption in your paint shop, and so on and so forth? But, ladies and gentlemen, that alone doesn't mean your production facility would be carbon neutral. For this, we've got to have huge amounts of electricity, and in the future it'll have to be green electricity. We have all of the data. Industry consumes 45% of power in Germany, and above all, in the past, it was from big power plants sent via the transmission grids. It was stable, it was low cost, and it was easy to plan for. We heard from Dr. Köchler about this. He talked about when he drove back from the North Sea coast, he saw photovoltaic panels and wind turbines and so on. These and other things will be changing this elementary structure we've had for decades. Today, energy comes from wind turbines, photovoltaics, and other renewable sources. It's decentralized and it has high fluctuation sometimes. We don't have the distribution grids for this. To manage this, we've got to have infrastructure solutions and smart grids. But secondly, this energy might have to be temporarily stored somewhere, or we might have to be able to feed it into a grid or have other sources, and batteries alone aren't sufficient for this. For this, we need hydrogen. For all of us, it's something completely new. Fuel cells have also been mentioned. They will be used in order to buffer these technologies. Now, the mix of energies that companies will require will include their own photovoltaic systems. They will have to have temporary storage in order to coordinate their consumption, and eventually they will have to then provide it to individual power consumers as required. All of these solutions, ladies and gentlemen, that are urgently required can be seen here at Hannover Messe. If you go to the different exhibitors' booths, it's all about these connections, integration of sectors beyond company borders. In order to achieve this, we need many solutions, and we're going to be hearing a lot about this next week. So as we've heard, the buzzword here at Hannover Messe is how can we succeed in the industrial transformation, the digitization of industry. Digital transformation is a huge task, a colossal task. We shouldn't forget this. In addition to that, all challenges in energy management require this digital transformation in order to do this along the entire supply chain and overcome the shortage of specialists. We must integrate across sectors, and only then can we create the necessary data rooms and ecosystems. They have one thing in common: their success depends on ensuring that more and more companies actually breathe life into this idea. Products, solutions, software stacks, modules have to be produced for this. The exhibitors at Hannover Messe are showing this expertise and innovativeness for individual sectors, and they've got to be top-notch in what they do, and they can also do this across sectors. Therefore, and this is our wish, by doing this, they become enablers. They create a data pool for data rooms. They drive forward digital transformation in industry, and in this way, integration can be achieved. Integration between the different fields of expertise. This can thus become a reality and a success. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the great opportunity we have, not just the exhibitors at the trade show, but for us in industry as a whole, and for industry as the backbone of the economy. As a result, the trade show will become a forum at which participants and organizers have to think in end-to-end processes and combine their expertise so that processes and solutions in the ecosystems can be created end to end. And this is perhaps the crucial difference, making the difference. Hannover Messe is not just a trade show with exhibitors' innovations, and this is our big hope and provides us security. Innovations are not just going to be presented here. Innovations can also sprout at the trade show in relationships between customers, suppliers, and manufacturers, but this can all happen in an exchange of ideas between different suppliers by having them look holistically at different areas and dealing with different issues holistically. Ladies and gentlemen, on the one hand, we've got major challenges, but on the other hand, we see, like was the case with Industry 4.0, that things can get moving sometimes. If we think in end-to-end processes, if we gather together different expertise and combine the expertise intelligently, we can come up with the crucial solutions to master the challenges of our industry, our manufacturing, and our economy. This can be done and will be done, and we are particularly looking forward to this. We're looking forward to next week. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, Herr Asch. Bleiben Sie ruhig.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asch. Please stay with me up here on stage, and I would like to welcome Mr. Köckler and Mr. Orgoseno up here on stage so we can dive into a round of questions. I have a question for you, Mr. Asch, on your presentation. You gave us an example from the plant in Heidelberg, 40 terabytes of data that is generated every day. That plant is up and running, has been up and running for 2 years, is that right? And during that time, have you been able to learn from that data for efficiency, for rendering your processes more efficient? And do you have any figures you could give us on that? Well, the first task was to contextualize the data. This means generating data on the production processes, and that is the major first task. And this took us a while, and we are still working on that. And working with new data and with more transparent processes, we can render the whole production more transparent. The processes are much more efficient in that facility than in different facilities and plants. We have not reached perfection yet. We're not using any AI processes. If we have our processes transparent enough to optimize them towards AI, we will of course do so. Please take a step forward. And I would like to now ask you for your questions. There's a question in the back. I have a question for Mr. Asch. Thank you. A question for Mr. Asch. I am Husni Suandi. I'm from Indonesia. You rightly said that ecosystems need a connection. We need to put it into perspective. You also produce software systems, and so on. Do you already have a system for electronics that we will use at night when we all want to charge our electric cars? Do you use wind power, for example, if we have too much power available, or if we don't have enough wind available at wind steel? That is a problem that we have in Indonesia too. There's a lot of wind in Indonesia. Thank you. Well, an answer to the question would be, we are active in the B2B business. We don't have the solutions for consumer, as was the analogy before, but we are working on systems in Europe, we're already working on even more topics. We don't have the technological basis and the legal basis for the communication in both directions, but that is something that we will look at in the future, no doubt. And for the first part of your question, these systems are not available without a software. So we need to look at the entire process and look at which software is needed for which part of the process. And that is what will come up in the future, definitely. And we need the political basis for that, political standards in general that must be set up as a basis in order to put these systems into practice. One more question in the front here. A question for Mr. Kirkler for the expected numbers of visitors. The digital participants have increased. What is your expectation for visitor numbers online and here in Hanover? Well, as many as possible. We have registration numbers, a registration system online. At the restart show last year, we had 80,000 registrations. Mr. Asch is in the advisory board, and we discussed that. We are very optimistic that we will have a number higher than those 80,000. It will not be as high as in 2019, but the registration numbers look very well. Regarding Hanover and locations surrounding Hanover, the registrations at hotels are much higher than last year. The internationality is very high. Many different delegations, a lot of demand is there from the international community, and I'm looking forward to every single person who will come and visit us. There are so many reasons for visiting us, and so we are expecting higher numbers than last year. Mr. Asch and Mr. Ambassador, you know this. The exhibitors must be satisfied. We are very grateful that we have this many exhibitors who focus on our focus topics too. And that is what grades our performance here, the satisfaction of the exhibitors. Thank you very much. Another question in the back, Stefan Hox from Radio 21. Hello. Is Chancellor Olaf Scholz present? Will he be present at the opening ceremony on Sunday night? Will he be opening the trade show? That's the first question. My second question is that 15 pavilions are going to be used, but will there also be exhibitions outside of the pavilions in the outside area? Well, first, we are very grateful for the fact that we have two highly relevant representatives of governments with us, Widodo, Mr. Widodo, President Widodo, and our Chancellor will be there at 6 p.m. on Sunday for the opening ceremony. And yes, it will be held in the Kuppelsaal again. We will have the setting again that we are used to on Sunday, a traditional setting for our open ceremony. For the Hermes Award, we already have 2,500 registrations. On Monday, there will be the official roundabout, the guided tour for Mr. Widodo and Mr. Scholz. 15 pavilions are part of the Hannover Messe. We will have applications outside, for example, with the electric shuttle, but we will not have exhibitions outside of the pavilions. And Mr. Widodo is traveling here only for the opening ceremony, and I'm very grateful for that. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Another question over here. Mr. Hohlmann, Niedersächsische Wirtschaft. What about the 5G network on the fairgrounds? Well, the 5G network is set up so that the exhibitors can use it. We have a passive infrastructure, so-called passive infrastructure, and because progressions are so very fast, we decided against setting up antennas for every pavilion, but for those exhibitors who would like to use it, 5G is available. I was asked on 5G. 5G is, of course, the basis of everything that we exhibit, of all the technologies. 5G is the basis to transmit the information of Hannover Messe. We are ready and we will be offering 5G. Another question in the back. Will traffic be organized differently in and around the fairgrounds for those traveling here? Well, no, there are challenges around the fairgrounds, of course, for traffic, but we want to, of course, guide our visitors here in the most optimal way. There's a major organization team working on that, but we do not have any major changes. Regarding the registrations, the Messe feeling is back here in the city for next week. And if everybody is satisfied at the end with how they got here to the fairgrounds, that would be great. We have different shuttle services bringing visitors here. We learned from the past trade shows, of course. In 4 weeks, we also have the Ligna show, then the Agritechnica as well. We have 4 major trade shows using our infrastructure, so we are, of course, aspiring to the most optimal way for visitors getting here. Bertil Starke from Norddeutschen Rundfunk. I have a question on the elements from the past year's digital formats that will be picked up again this year for this year's Hannover Fair. We are very open for anything. The question is whether or not it will be possible to take part in the trade show digitally only. Will these visitors be part of the of the visiting numbers? Well, we will offer possibilities for that, but the numbers are very low for these visitors, which again shows how attractive it actually is to come here and see the trade show live. Our main stage will be streamed, and we want to, of course, pass on positive messages from the trade show to those who cannot be here. So we're moving in the direction of more physical trade shows again. We have colleagues with us here who are posting many beautiful things online already, but our business development is focusing on the in-person trade show. It is our task to get people to come to our city, but we also have a digital program, and we heard the presentation. It would be absolutely crazy to tell people to come here and then not have a digital program. But of course, every time people come together, major things can happen. So we want to leave the Teams meetings and enter the meetings here at the trade show. I think that was a beautiful last remark. Thank you very much to all of you who have been here. Thank you to our 3 speakers, and you of course will have the opportunity to talk to our guests after this conference. We would like to invite you to a lunch imbiss, and thank you to everybody who followed us online and see you next week here in Hanover.